You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 70, Saturday night special. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the show. We've got an absolute banger of an episode tonight as we were absolutely welcomed back by college football, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and a lot more on the slate. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the show, as always, please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching: Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. The QR code there in the corner of the screen will give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. Again, we are reacting to Florida State and Georgia Tech, going over the NFL awards predictions, also going over the rookie quarterback rankings as well, and each NFC team's agenda, really what's going to be their mantra or one of their biggest questions going in to the 2024 NFL season. Hope y'all have had a great week. Hope y'all are able to catch some great football and great sports this week. Thank y'all for welcoming me back out of the hiatus, getting back into the NFL with AJL. And like I mentioned on the last episode, we debuted the Double A, which is a weekly college football segment. And I've got none other than the other half of the Double A, my brother Alan, and he is a diehard Florida State fan. I was happening to temper his expectations and temper some of his remarks before we got on the show, because I'm like, I need that emotion for the fan. We need the instant reaction from you. We know the game ended a few hours ago. Before we get you worked up, bro, how have you been since we last were on the show?
Oh, I've been doing good. Other than today, of course.
Yeah, it was a tough one for you to stomach. It was a
Oh yeah,
crazy
hard to
one.
swallow.
So I'll let the diehard Florida State fan kick it off. Give me some of your takeaways. Complain all you want, man. The floor is absolutely yours.
You know, surprisingly enough, I'm not gonna complain too terribly much. That's been the narrative going on social media right now. I gotta tip the cap to Tech though. Way to show up. Way to play a really good game, physical game.
Yep,
Um, Harder than anyone expected them to show out.
absolutely.
They wanted it more, man. I got to give it to them where it's due. I knew they weren't going to roll over for us. I knew it.
Right.
I said it
Yep.
last week or a few days ago, as a matter of fact.
Right. When
Um,
we did our prediction.
but like I said, a lackluster performance on defense today.
Yeah.
Very lackluster performance.
Mm-hmm.
We we just we struggled, especially on the edge and lack of
Yep.
sacks. It was
Zero.
rough, very
Yeah.
rough,
Yeah, it
very
was a
rough
rough
out.
outing for Florida State today, no doubt, man. And when you talk about how the defense was an absolute letdown, we talked about it on the show on Tuesday, how this was one of the best defenses in the country, definitely one of the best defenses in the conference. So they give up 336 total yards today, 190 yards on the ground. And Georgia
Absolutely.
Tech came out right at the beginning, and we knew from the first drive that's what the hell they were going to do. And we saw last year they were the number one team in the ACC for rush yards per game. Jamal Haynes, we know Haynes King had 10 touchdowns and over 700 yards on the ground last year with his legs. But when you just look at
Yep.
everything that Florida State was not able to do to Georgia Tech, they weren't able to get them off third down on some of those long
Oh
conversions.
yeah, third
They
down
didn't
conversion.
force them into any fourth downs that they actually went for it on. But if you look overall outside of that defense, it was a pretty damn even game. 30 and a half minutes of time of possession for Florida State, 29 minutes and 21 seconds for Georgia Tech. No turnovers for either team, although we did have two fumbles, of course, pop out for Georgia Tech. Only 4 penalties in this game. And let's just give credit to Ireland and to Aer Lingus for this entire kickoff and just an amazing start to allow us to bring our sport over there, because it was just absolutely
Absolutely.
great coverage. It was absolutely great coverage of this game, dude. And when I was looking in the first half, it was really showing that those 17 transfers from Florida State were really, like they were definitely still shaking some of the rust off. DJU in the first half was 12 for 14, and he had negative -0.1 air
One
yards on
yard.
average. It was showing signs of still having to warm up. He had to move the ball better. But talk about a way to start the season in the first
Oh
drive that
yeah.
Florida State came out with. The run game, the O-line was blocking and making gaps. And then shout out the special teams of Florida State in this game as well. Going for 2 to just absolutely felt like it blew the game open in a way. And, they took the 8-0 lead. And then Georgia Tech said, we're going to show you what we're doing on the first drive early, often. 6 plays, 5 runs, one of which was a 40-yard plus run by Jamal Haynes, touchdown drive, and they continued running the football on Florida State all damn day
Oh yeah, we could
long.
not contain the run at all. That was
It,
our
it
weak point. That was
mhm.
really that was a significant weak point. And to piggyback what you said, respect to Ireland, I got Irish roots, obviously. But being an FSU fan today wasn't exactly what we had hoped for.
Yep.
You know, but like you said, the run game, they ran it down our throat. We could not
literally,
contain the run.
and y'all
That was
couldn't
the
turn
big
around and run it
problem.
on them.
Absolutely. That was a big game changer there. They did play an even game, even keeled game for the most
Right,
part. It just
right,
came down to the wire, you know.
right.
To give an example, like your Bulldogs a few years back, that South Carolina game. I know it probably haunts you a little bit.
Oh yeah,
That
make the damn kick.
that field goal, man. It sometimes
And
it
Jake
comes
Fromm
down to
played
plays
horrible
like
too.
that.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
just want to clear the air real quick. Um, I've seen a lot of hate on DJU's first outing for
yeah.
FSU. This is
Right,
his first game. Like you said, we got 17 transfers in there.
right. This is his
Um,
third game. Excuse me. This is his third team in 3 season openers. I don't think people
exactly,
process that. Clemson, Oregon
exactly.
State,
Third
FSU.
playbook. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
And
Now, while that is
and
kinda common for college, there that does still factor in, and I even
right.
said, "DJU could look a little rusty early on." That 251-pound quarterback did he play kinda sloppy today. I was a little
Oh,
disappointed in him.
absolutely. I was too. The completion rating, I was semi okay with that, but
Yeah,
the yards on the ground, I was very concerned with that. 7
yeah,
yards rushing? Ooh,
right.
that's tough. That is very tough.
And to even speak on your rushing yards there, y'all only had 90 rushing yards against the worst ranked rushing defense last year, which shocked me. But then when you take a look at it, the new defensive hires that Georgia Tech just brought in, Toafili and Williams, were non factors. And
I
then you
know.
turn around. I'm sorry, Alan, but after Haynes King and Jamal Haynes today, bro, they have earned the title of Haynes and Haynes runners at law. These guys had 26 carries for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hey, Haynes King, obviously player of the game. And Georgia Tech's defense really could have got that nod also, man, holding y'all to 5 of 12 on third down. And, I will say, neither quarterback was impressive today. Combined, they didn't even throw for 300 yards. But when you look at the spots of the game that DJU had to step up in, and he didn't. And Haynes King did. Haynes King played better in bigger spots than DJU
Absolutely.
did and showed more mental toughness, showed a little more grit than DJ did at certain times. And, Haynes even had a few overthrows in this game that really could have busted this game open, specifically talking about that corner
Absolutely.
route that was overthrown in the end zone. I was
Yep.
like, Florida State had some coverage lapses today. That ACC defense was looking a little odd, man, for sure. Now we did see DJ get a little settled in after the half somewhat, and then a little later in the fourth
Oh, yeah,
quarter,
in the
but he
second
did
half.
have some.
Yeah.
Right, right. He did have some key misses as well, and he finally started to finally started to really pick up on those third down blitz packages that he was getting thrown at him because Georgia Tech realized once they got off the edge a couple times and made DJU move off his spot, they just kept sending those third down blitz packages at him, trying to disguise those blitzes really to really be able to throw him off. And DJU had the throw to Douglas that was reviewed and then ruled complete. He had the four. So the best part of the game where DJ really showed that he is a competitor and an outright baller, 2 straight fourth down conversions with the game on the line, and DJU and Mike Norvell in that offense punch it in for a
Absolutely.
touchdown.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, it
And
just
that's why Florida
came.
State fans should be happy, bro, because DJU did
Yeah.
that.
Yes, yes,
DJU
he
did
did.
that with his back against the wall in the college football opener when Georgia Tech had all the momentum. Really, once Florida State went up 8-0, let's just call it what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Georgia Tech had 3 straight touchdowns.
They sure
They
did.
didn't kick
We
a
could
field
not
goal until
stop
they
them.
had to win it. Exactly.
To quote the great Nick Saban, they ran through us like crap through a tin horn, and we couldn't stop them.
Right.
Could not stop them. That run
Right.
game, it was insane. I
Right.
mean, we had no answer for it. But
Right.
like I said, I've seen nothing but just clear blame on DJU for this. I'm like, it's not entirely his fault. This is a
Not at
total
all.
team loss. We
He
lost
missed
in
some
all
key.
phases of the
Right.
game. I
Right.
mean, you can't blame it all on the general marching you downfield. You
Nope.
know, defense was clearly the clear and cut problem.
Yeah.
Like I said, couldn't contain the edge, could
Nope.
not sack the quarterback. We could not
Nope.
get after Haynes King, man. He was getting
Nope.
out of there, throwing passes, getting good looks. I mean,
Literally, I
he
said, how many times are they going to let this guy run and not have a spy on him? Option to the outside, option to the outside, option up the middle, run up the middle. That was all they did.
right.
And
They
then
were
Jamal
running two
Haynes
deep safeties on
himself.
defense the whole time. It's like, God.
Exactly. Exactly. Jamal Haynes himself, 15 for 75 and 2 touchdowns. And I will give some credit to Florida State as well, because although they did let off some big runs to some of those players, they did good in spots to hold them to the run. But again, we know how the run game is. You pound
Right.
it, you pound it, you pound it, you pound it. And on that 8th, 9th, 12th, 17th carry, that defense doesn't have as long to breathe when you got a guy
Absolutely.
like Haynes King or Jamal Haynes coming up that backfield. And when you have guys like Patrick Payton that are possibly getting gas, that was also shocking, bro. No
Oh
sacks in
yeah.
this game.
Nope.
Florida State had no sacks. They had no turnovers despite 2 fumbles from Georgia Tech, but I'm not going to hold them to 2, just 1. Haynes King had a bad snap with the jet motion coming across. And there was the one that was recoverable, but you saw
Mm-hmm.
Haynes King dive for it. The players kind of lost it behind their back. It was just a moment that, Florida State really needed to capitalize on. And you talk about the motion, the jet motion, the eye candy, the sweeps across the
Oh
field. Florida
yeah.
State could not handle that, man.
Yeah.
Everybody in the country just figured out how to stifle the Seminoles. And
Yes.
that's not
Yes,
to
they
put
did.
this team, out to dry, because clearly when I'm not going to say exposed, but when you're beat on a national stage as 12-point favorites, as 20 game straight winners
Yep.
to a team that was 0-15 in their last 10 top 10 matchups, 0-15 in their last 15 top 10 matchups. And the last time they won was against you guys with the block kick in 2015. People are going to
2015,
take tape
Everett
from that.
Golson. I remember it like yesterday. Oof.
Exactly.
Still
People
leaves a
are
bad taste in my
going
mouth.
to take note of that.
Yep. And you know, it like I said earlier, it was a overall just a team loss. And I got to give credit where credit's due. Mike Norvell even addressed this in the press conference after the game. He said, I didn't put position players. I didn't put players in position. Sorry,
Yeah.
um, to make key plays when it mattered. And
Right.
I like that accountability from Coach Norvell because we know what he's capable of.
Yeah.
We know his resume. We know what he brings to the
Mm-hmm.
table here.
We see players
Um,
and people in the league and even around other sports all the time throwing teammates under the bus. Coaches talking about, well, if
Absolutely.
we wouldn't have ran this play. And it's like, okay, you're not saying a name, but only one person made that play. You know what I'm saying? And Mike Norvell took it on the
Absolutely.
nose, man. He,
Yeah, like a
as
man.
the most pissed off team in college football, it looked like Georgia Tech was the most pissed off team in college football tonight. I
Yeah,
mean, they
sure.
they came to play, dog.
And I get the
They
media prowess behind it too, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we were whining, we were complaining, we didn't make the playoff, yada yada yada." I get it. That's last season though.
Oof.
This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
season,
Right.
you
If
know.
y'all want to tell us to put last season behind us, don't bring up stuff that has to do with last season to
Thank
try
you.
to justify your angle on us. I'm right there with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new season, and I was here last time we did the show. I was
Yeah.
advocating for Georgia Tech. I was like, "Man, they're
Yeah. You
not
told me to watch
they're
out.
not to be messed with. They're
You told
not
me
to
to
be
watch
messed
out.
with." Haynes King is a threat. We
Yeah,
saw
he
today.
was. Yeah, he was.
I
He
mean,
outplayed DJ today, bro. Straight up. And that's
straight up,
crazy as
in
hell to
every
say.
facet of the game. It is
Yep.
crazy to say with as
Yep.
much experience that DJ has under his belt. He was just a better quarterback today.
Yep. He
He
was.
didn't wake up till the fourth quarter, unfortunately for
Uh-uh.
DJ. And
Right.
once they got it rolling, they made some good strides, some great plays, some things that I think will carry on throughout the season. Will improve on throughout the season, especially next
Right.
week on Boston College. I'm not
Right.
expecting to stomp them out of the water either, but because they gave us a run for our money last season. But
Mm-hmm.
like us, they lost players. So, it could be an even keeled matchup there. But at the same time, we gotta look at what went wrong today and attack that.
Yep. Got to get stronger in the trenches. Got to pick up those blitzes better.
Oh yeah.
And DJU just has to play better in bigger spots. Last moment before I let you get out of here, and I'll talk with some NFL content. Georgia Tech's head coach Brent Key has now recorded 10 outright wins as an underdog.
Yep.
10.
Nothing but respect for Brent.
He is 5-0 against ranked ACC opponents in his tenure in just 2 years, I believe it is, at Georgia Tech.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. After today, they showed us why they deserve to be in that conversation for that ACC chip. I'm not saying
Yeah.
they're going, but you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if they don't.
Right.
Way Haynes King was playing ball today. You know,
Right.
like I said, they showed us why they're a great team, and it
Mm-hmm.
came down to the wire that final play, and great games usually do that.
Right.
But we gotta pick up the pieces and then focus on Boston College next week. Once a no,
Right.
always a no. I bleed garden and gold. You know that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stick with my team, ride or die.
100%, bro. Trying to make sure we're on YouTube. Yep, we are. Okay, cool. I thought for some reason that we weren't. I'm so glad we got to cover this game, man. Like I said, guys,
Absolutely.
the Double A is going to be a weekly podcast or possibly a segment of the show, but it is going to be weekly. Adam, Allen, going to be a great segment. We will
Yep.
be on Tuesday. Again, I'm about to let him drop out. I'm going to tackle some NFL here. We'll be on Tuesday. We're going to the opener for Georgia in Atlanta against Clemson on Saturday. We will have a pregame show. Not sure of the destination yet. Still trying to kind of work out the equipment and the logistics of internet connection to make sure you guys can hear us out in the parking lot while we're tailgating and everything. But we really want to bring you guys some on the scene content as much as possible. This will be my first
Absolutely.
college game. Alan was super psyched to go with me. We kind of pulled it off last minute. But it's going to be great. We love y'all's support. We've already seen the support, what's coming on the podcast, and we're super grateful to have the Double A be a part of the NFL with AJL and just really have some extensive college football coverage, man. But Alan, as always, I appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely.
Don't hold your
No
head too
problem
low
at all.
because, like I said,
Oh yeah,
DJU is a
no.
competitor. It's
11
the
more
first game
games.
of the year. Exactly. It's the first game of the year. It's the best college football season we're ever about to experience. The stakes were high, bro. I mean, we're in
Absolutely.
Ireland for the first time ever. You know, it's crazy. But y'all definitely got some stripes in today. You know, exactly. You definitely got some stripes in today. DJ, you got a taste of what it's going to be like in that
Yeah, like,
ACC, whether it is a neutral site or not. And I think Florida State fans, all things considered, should still hold their heads high at the end of this one. But I love you, brother. I'm gonna let you pop out, and I'm gonna tackle some of these NFL topics, man.
absolutely. Just one more thing. I know you
Go
covered
for it.
some NFC stuff tonight. You better talk nice about those Niners.
Oh yeah, Super Bowl or bust for them, dog. I'm being for real. That is a nice thing to say too. I mean, we're about to get
Yeah,
into each NFC team's agendas or biggest questions, so we'll definitely be hitting it. I think it's actually the last team because the NFC West is last, and I put the Niners at the very bottom. But they're the only NFC team that I think is Super Bowl or bust, though, man. To be honest, I mean, just what they have on
absolutely, man.
paper and obviously, you know, their history. But all right, brother, I'm gonna
All
let
right,
you pop
man.
out, and I'll see you Tuesday.
Good to be here as always, man.
See you, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, again, super appreciate y'all for supporting the Double A, supporting the NFL with AJL coming back again. This is episode 70. Please make sure you like and share the show on all platforms that you're watching, Facebook, YouTube especially, and Twitch as well. Let's jump into every NFC team's agenda / biggest question, starting with the NFC North, or excuse me, the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. Raheem Morris has all the pressure on him right now. This team is really set on all aspects. You could say it might not be in the quarterback room because of Kirk Cousins' injury, and obviously with Michael Penix kind of wondering what's going to happen with him in the starting role. But when you look at what this team has done, Matthew Judon, obviously the drafts in the last years, they bring in Justin Simmons. They got Jesse Bates last year. This team has arguably the best safety tandem in the NFL now, or one of the better ones, no doubt about it. And when you just look at what this team has put together year over year over year over year, and I wasn't a fan of the Raheem Morris hire. I understand that D'Amico Ryans with the Texans was a former player, and that was a really big breakout season. But last time Ron Morris was in here, it was not a good look for him. All things considered, it was in the middle of a season for an interim spot. I think the Falcons should have retained him that year rather than going to get Arthur Smith and having an absolute dumpster fire of 3 straight 7-10 seasons. But that's not here nor there. Again, this is a loaded roster on both sides of the ball. The pressure has been on the coach for years. It's really now on the coach in the front office, and we know that about the Falcons. So their agenda is, or really their statement of the season, Raheem Morris has all of the pressure on him. He's got the players in place. He's got a weak division. He's got the, arguably the weaker conference in the NFL, although it is heating up with the likes of, Green Bay and Chicago getting their bearings, feels like coming into this year. And of course, last year, and Detroit over the last couple of years. So, it's not now or never for the Falcons, but the pressure is very immense on Raheem Morris. The New Orleans Saints, Clint Kubiak has to restore life and unpredictability to this offense. I think the defense will be set as much as it can be. We know that the Saints are getting old on the defensive line. There's a Chase Young that's come in. Obviously, there's a Granderson. Of course, Cameron Jordan's getting a little older as well. He even said he would move to the inside or come off the bench if he had to, whatever would help this team succeed. I'm not worried about the defense. And Derek Carr, while he did have some solid numbers last year, I'm not super crazy about what Derek Carr is going to do for this offense either. We need Alvin Kamara to wake up. I want to see more of Rashid Shaheed. I want to see more of effectiveness with Chris Olave. I want to see A.T. Perry get worked into the lineup. We just brought Cedric Wilson, and not a player that I'm super crazy about. I need to see Kendre Miller stay healthy. That's not as much on Koob, but his systems have to wake this offense up because ever since Drew Brees has left the building, this offense has been so predictable. Everyone in the world knows what we're running and when we're going to run it. And you could look at the head coaching aspect as being an agenda of this year, but we've griped about that for the last couple of years. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team where the defense is set, but can the offense can the offense gel again? Losing Dave Canales, who just unlocked Baker Mayfield, and then them being on their third offensive coordinator in 3 years. Also, Baker Mayfield, how he went through so many head coaches and offensive coordinators himself. Yes, he did find some stability in Tampa Bay, no doubt about that. But Dave Canales really did a wonder for him. And yes, Baker did have solid talent around him as well. The Bucs did have a solid year last year. They did beat the Eagles in the first round. Now, whether that is an accomplishment to you or not, it's still a playoff win under a first-year offensive coordinator and a Baker Mayfield who, outside of a lightning in a bottle year, hadn't really showed us much of anything to like. The Carolina Panthers, speaking of Dave Canales, because now we know that Carolina poached Dave Canales from Tampa Bay as their offensive coordinator. He is now the new head coach. Can Dave Canales unlock Bryce Young like he did Baker Mayfield? We know that Bryce Young did not have a very good first year. And a lot of that was due to the head coaching. A lot of that was due to the head coaching. And I won't even lie to you. They were so bad last year. I don't even know who the head coach was last year. I have to look. Who was the head coach last year? Y'all gonna roast me as I'm doing this, but I need to know. Panthers head coach over the years. Yes, tell me, please. I'm dying over here. Oh, Frank Reich. Excuse me. And that's sad because Frank Reich was a very reputable name in the NFL. And that feels even horrible to say that Bryce Young was not good under the tutelage of Frank Reich. Like, that is insane to say. So now you have Dave Canales step in, who did have that 1 year hit as an offensive coordinator. But does he really have enough to also, again, build Baker Mayfield up in that way? I'm not worried about the talent that's there. But when you have these new things popping in, and a guy like Bryce Young, who really needs to be unlocked as that number one overall pick, as Carolina has done all that work, as they have hired again this coach to really be that lifeline for them to compete in arguably the worst division in the NFL. On to the NFC North. Green Bay's agenda / biggest question: does Jordan Love keep the form and play up to his contract as now the richest man in the NFL? Signing the biggest quarterback contract that we've ever seen. 4 years, $220 million. Now, we know Jordan Love played well last year. There's no doubt about that. Jordan Love came out and balled, and we're all sitting here wondering how for the third straight year the Green Bay Packers have done this. It's not fair. It's almost unspeakable how the front office is this on top of things. But they did it. They drafted Jordan Love. They took the old way. He sat behind Aaron Rodgers, and now it's locked in here. But does Jordan Love keep up that form and play up to his contract? Because Green Bay, they're, within a matter of a season, they feel like a serious team in the NFC. And they will have the Detroits, and they will have the potential Dallases and the Eagles and the Rams and the San Francisco Niners of the conference. But when you look at Green Bay, the coach, the quarterback, the front office, the roster, the recent acquisitions, you can't help but wonder if the quarterback, the main point of it all, is going to be able to hold all of this up. Because that is one of the most shocking parts of this team. And then they go out and give him that type of deal. It was just his time to get paid, but what a payday. The Minnesota Vikings. This team's agenda is straight up, Sam Darnold bums me out for this season for the Minnesota Vikings. Or what the Vikings could be currently if not for Kirk Cousins' injury. Now, of course, we don't know, if the Vikings were going to re-sign him. We know the situation with Kirk's contract and how things were playing out. But if Kirk doesn't get hurt, as he was becoming an MVP candidate, as the Vikings, I believe at the time, had a 7-1 record and were looking like one of the teams in the NFC to beat, looking like an absolute contender. And then JJ McCarthy comes in and gets drafted. And then he's out for the season, which I was never hype about JJ McCarthy. These guys moved up one draft spot to get him. JJ McCarthy could be a modern day or a new version of Jimmy Garoppolo. Michigan didn't ask him to throw the ball a whole lot. It was more of a defensive, smash mouth, aggressive, running the ball football team. And now steps in Sam Darnold, who has bounced around the league. We know what this guy really hasn't been in his tenure in the NFL. And it just bums me out for the Vikings to know that they might be in for a really, really rough year, despite the talent that they have and despite the draft that they had and the acquisitions that they brought in as well. The Chicago Bears. Does Caleb Williams possibly lead the Chicago Bears to the playoffs? And I'm being serious when I say this here. We know the type of conference that the NFC is. Caleb Williams is extremely set up with the Chicago Bears. We know all the players that they brought in for them. Guys like Keenan Allen, guys like DeAndre Swift, the linebackers that were brought in last year, the way that they were able to build around Caleb Williams so quickly. And it's kind of crazy because it shows you that, no matter what no matter what they said about Justin Fields, they could have pulled these moves off at a sooner time. And I had advocated for Justin Fields. No one has had a worse defense, scheme, offensive coordinator, head coach, weapon since being in the league. And then they turn around and do this for Caleb. Maybe the playoffs are lofty, but this division could be tough with Green Bay and Detroit in here. I'm not worried about Minnesota. And if he can't lead Chicago to the playoffs, well, not even that, because if he wins the division, he's going to take them to the playoffs. Don't necessarily see them winning the division, but I could see Caleb Williams going on a run with this team. Matt Eberflus getting some recognition because we know Caleb is talented. Yes, he showed it to us in the preseason, but we know the preseason is kind of who he actually is in terms of all the snaps he had at USC and winning that Heisman. The Detroit Lions, their expectation is at least the NFC title game. Absolutely nothing less. The Detroit Lions are so loaded on both sides of the ball. They have that head coach. They have that quarterback. They have that structure, that identity, that aggressiveness, that originality about them, that when they were in the NFC title game last year, you really felt like they could have went to the Super Bowl and won it. There were multiple times in the season where the Detroit Lions were arguing for the best team in the NFC. And yes, we know that was the Niners for the most of the year, and maybe no one actually thought that. But the Detroit Lions surprised a lot of people this year, and we saw it with the opener against the Kansas City Chiefs. Jared Goff is amazing. I think he's just had a couple of unlucky rolls with the dice, but what he's done in Detroit with all of the horrible expectations everybody had of them, myself included, when he went to the Lions and was traded from the Rams, the expectation, the agenda, the standard for the Detroit Lions this year is at least the NFC title game. 8 teams down, 8 to go for every NFC team's agenda or biggest question for the 2024 NFL season. In the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys. This team has to beat good teams when it matters. They beat up on a lot of crappy teams in 2023. And that's why when the playoffs came around, I wasn't a believer of them. I wasn't. I might have been saying that, yes, I felt like they had enough to get the job done, but they hadn't showed me the experience that they had conquered to get the job done, the experience they had been through to get the job done. Woo! 870 subs. Thank you, baby. I actually had, I think, 855 just a few days ago in the YouTube shorts. Just the one short that I've posted being back. The reach is amazing. So appreciate everybody and thank you, babe, for shouting that out to the audience as well. But the Cowboys beat up on a lot of bad teams last year, and they just didn't have the experience to actually get everything done. Beating up on the Giants, beating up on the Commanders, beating up on a lot of these sub 500 teams. It was the same issue with the Miami Dolphins. So when everyone was talking about, Dak for MVP, which I was saying Dak for MVP, because if we're talking about the numbers and the value, he could have argued for being the best at that, for last year in terms of the MVP award. But Dallas has to learn how to beat good teams because we know what this team is capable of. This is one of potentially the best teams in the league if they know how to handle their business. And no, you cannot say that about every NFL team. Not every NFL team has the type of talent that the Cowboys have and has at times a formidable coach like Mike McCarthy. The Washington Commanders. The agenda is this team actually had a chance to be an NFC sleeper, but then you look at the schedule and that doesn't help. And then you look at the fact that they hired a defensive-minded coach in Dan Quinn and that doesn't help, and it's not going to help. And then you look at the fact that they hired Cliff Kingsbury to also run the offense, who is a very underwhelming pick, considering you just took the Heisman winner, number 2 overall in Jaden Daniels. But I don't I'm I'm not feeling the Commanders because of their schedule and because of the coaching. I know they brought in Austin Eckler. I know they brought in Bobby Wagner. I know that they brought in Zach Ertz. I know they brought in Dante Fowler and Frankie Louvu and the other defensive end, Cleveland Farrell. I know that they brought all of those people in. We've seen in recent years, if you have a loaded roster, but you do not have a head coach, if you do not have good coordinators, a good staff, a front office to hire that staff, it is not going to be pretty or formidable for an NFL team. I like Jaden Daniels. I thought Jaden Daniels could have went number 1 overall. He just helped engineer 45 and a half points a game under Brian Kelly and look like Joe Burrow just not winning the national championship. And yes, I said it. Go look at his damn numbers. Jaden Daniels Williams. So don't think I'm a Jaden Daniels hater. I just don't like what's set up around him. The New York Giants. How much longer will the Daniel Jones era last? I mean, truly. From the moment he was picked, it was goofy. And then you hand him a $40 million contract. And then things just keep playing out. And then Tommy DeVito has to step in because of the injuries. But Daniel Jones, from 1 year, gets that contract. We understand Brian Daboll did very good unlocking him and made him that mobile quarterback and gave him that confidence to take off and be sort of something in the NFL at that time for that small amount of time that he played well. Or I guess you could say he played well for the stretch of that season. But the dual threatness that he brought out actually was kind of impressive. Reminded me of when Baker Mayfield had the lightning in the bottle. It's another quarterback I was literally just thinking of before I said Baker, but I can't remember. But to go along with the Daniel Jones era, when is this team going to get some talent? When is this team going to build a depth chart that has players on it that actually scare you? They lose Saquon. I know they've got Jalen Hyatt from last year. But when you look at other players, I mean, show me. Yes, they have Schmitz Jr. at center. They have John Runyon. But when you just look down the roster, Devin Singletary, nah. They don't have offensive talent. When you go to the defensive side of the ball, thankfully they still have Dexter Lawrence. They do have Brian Burns that they brought in. I believe they did pay him some crazy money in the trade, and people were kind of freaking out from Carolina when that trade happened. But it's as low as it can get, it feels like, for the New York Giants. The Daniel Jones era is absolutely spoiling this franchise, and they need a front office that actually cares about getting talent in there. And I understand the whole Saquon Barkley situation with him having to get out of town. But even when Saquon was there, it wasn't a super formidable team. The Philadelphia Eagles, this defense could really surprise everyone this year with Vic Fangio stepping in. We know they were 30th in points last year and 26th in yards, the Philadelphia Eagles, after being a great defense going to the Super Bowl and damn near beating Patrick Mahomes in a shootout. The Dolphins defense was very good last season with Vic Fangio. It was. They stepped up to the plate, and it shocked me when when Vic and Miami parted ways. It was a mutual parting of the ways, which you can ask, I guess, for nothing prettier than that, right? But, Philadelphia brought in Saquon Barkley. They brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They've still got A.J. Brown. They've still got Jalen Hurts. They still have a good core of their team. Of course, we know that Jason Kelce is no longer there because he's retired. But Nick Sirianni is still a formidable coach for this team. Vic Fangio stepping in to help this defense out is really what this team needed, because this team's offense was still solid last year. And they had a gauntlet of teams that they went through as well. An absolute gauntlet of teams that they went through. And they were able to come out on top and beat them. Hold on, guys. Just had a phone call come in. Just making sure that everything is cool. I'm hoping that they didn't mean to call. It was my mom. You always gotta make sure mom's is good. I didn't tell her I was on a podcast, so Let's see. Maybe she didn't mean to call. But yes, Philadelphia, this defense could 100% surprise everyone with Vic Fangio stepping in. The Dolphins defense was good last season. The Eagles still had a solid offense. This is still a team that can compete for a Super Bowl. They are still one of the NFC's better teams, even though last year it might not have told you that. But we saw what the secondary was becoming. We saw that when CJ Gardner Johnson left, it was not that great at all. The NFC West. Each team's agenda or biggest question in the NFC West. The Seattle Seahawks. I wish this team would have hired an offensive-minded head coach. This was a textbook Seahawks hire with bringing in Mike Macdonald. And this guy is really a young Pete Carroll. We know that. The Seahawks struggled very, very badly offensively last year. Defensively, very bad defensively. And we know Mike Macdonald was a very, very budding head coach candidate in the NFL as he gave the Ravens the best defense in the league. And the Seahawks felt like they were losing themselves there. Pete Carroll steps down. We know this has been a defensive league. We know the Legion of Boom that was here. But if Pete Carroll is in there and the defense is fading, it was clearly time for a replacement. They are going to live and die on the defense. This is the culture of this team right now. It was run first in defense, and now they're slowly trying to open things up. They got a JSN. They got a DK Metcalf, still a Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith kind of unlocked himself, it felt like, hopefully a couple of years ago. We'll see what year 3 brings for him after winning Comeback Player of the Year a couple seasons back. But when you look at the fact that they did hire a defensive-minded coach, and I wish it would have been an offensive-minded coach because this is a good roster offensively here. And we know that they struggled horribly on defense. Again, that's why they brought in Mike Macdonald, so don't think that I'm trashing him. And when you look at it, the offensive side of the ball or the offensive coaches, the staff, the coordinators that are going to be contributing here, Ryan Grubb, who was brought in to really help out the passing attack, really to help move the football. He was amazing at Washington. He was a Washington Huskies coordinator. In 2022, his offense ranked first in the nation in pass yards per game with 370 and second in total yards per game with 516. You even go and look in 2023, they ranked in second of all FBS programs in passing yards per game at 343 and 12th in total offense at 462. And this guy really got it out of the mud to be able to get over and play. Shit, I just lost my train of thought there. Lord. He really got it out of the mud, Ryan Grubb did, to be able to go to Washington and be our offensive coordinator and get the opportunity to work with Michael Penix and with Kalen DeBoer and, building that prolific passing attack that everybody was so afraid of, or really that everybody respected and recognized in the college football playoffs. Sports PSP, what's up, man? Thoughts on Tua's comment about Brian Flores? I actually didn't see that, or I heard about it, but I didn't look into it. So let me know what they said in the comment, and I'll be more than happy to give you my feedback real quick on what I think about that. The Arizona Cardinals, can this offense restore some life with Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey Benson, the running back coming in from Florida State as well? I'm not counting on Jonathan Gannon to turn it around, unfortunately, because I just don't think he's cut out to be a head coach, and we've seen that. He was a very solid defensive coordinator with the Eagles. We saw that he was very, very solid at being a defensive coordinator with Philadelphia, but when he stepped into the scene with Arizona, it was odd, his videos and his press conference and, some of the content that the team was posting about his message to the players. And we know that he was hyped with Kyler, but he didn't have a lot to work with. And then we know that he wasn't really able to work with Kyler until a little bit into the season because Kyler was hurt and he needed his chance to heal up. And then even when Kyler came back, Gannon did improve some because he had that talent, but I still don't think that Jonathan Gannon is going to be the guy. But this offense has to restore some sort of life with Kyler Murray, with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Trey Benson, because we know this is an offensive league and they have some players to actually make these things happen. Last two teams here, the Los Angeles Rams, one of the biggest winners of the draft, without a question. Jared Verse and Braden Fisk come in from FSU, and then you bring in Blake Corum, the best running back in the draft, coming in from Michigan. can they actually compete with San Francisco for the division title? And yes, I 100% mean this because they have a Cooper Cup, they have a Puka Nakua. Again, they do have a Blake Corum now going to be in that backfield. They bring in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, again, like I just mentioned, from LSU to be on that, or FSU, excuse me, to be on that defensive line and really hold it down, because we know that with Aaron Donald retiring, that was going to look different. That was going to look extremely different with Aaron Donald retiring. And maybe not extremely different, right? But it was going to be very interesting to see how they adjusted with Aaron Donald getting out of town, being the best interior defensive lineman that we've ever seen. Could the Rams compete with the San Francisco 49ers for the division title? Because they kind of match up with them. I like Stafford with Purdy. Blake Corum's young. I'm not saying he's going to be CMC, but they've got some young folks in that backfield. Kyren Williams as well, who is very solid. We know the receivers that are with the Rams, along with the receivers for the San Francisco Niners, and they might not even have Brandon Ayuk by the time the season starts. We know the defense that both of these teams have. We know the head coaching prowess that both of these teams have. We know the front office that both of these teams have. So they're both going to possibly be aggressive at the deadline. We saw the Rams go get OBJ to take him to be able to go to the Super Bowl and have him play a major part in winning the Super Bowl. So both of these teams can be aggressive. Again, when San Francisco traded and got CMC at the deadline, there's a lot of similarities between these two teams when you look into them. And speaking of the San Francisco 49ers, what more can it be than Super Bowl or bust? I mean, honestly, they were in it last year. Some people are ballsy enough to say that Brock Purdy is the second best quarterback in the NFL, and no, I did not misspeak there. We know the we know I totally lost my train of thought. We know the offense this team has. We know the defense this team has. I mean, again, the roster is absolutely jam-packed. This team has been successful for quite a few years now. Kyle Shanahan has taken his team to 3 Super Bowls. He's lost all 3 Super Bowls. As a head coach, he's been to 2 and lost both to Patrick Mahomes. And could it be a Super Bowl rematch next year between the two? Not really sure. But when you look at everything that the Niners have been through, how could it not be Super Bowl or bust? Honestly, how couldn't it be with everything that they've accomplished? Because there is nowhere further that they can go than the top. And no, you can't, again, say that for every NFL team, because not a lot of teams, if any, are in the position that the San Francisco 49ers are in. You guys let me know what you thought of every NFC team's agenda, the standard, their biggest question, kind of their mantra walking into the NFL season. Now we're going to get into power ranking rookie quarterbacks in their first season. It's just going to be a short little segment here, but we'll start. It's going to be a little weird. Obviously, I'm not going to include J.J. McCarthy because he's injured, and I think that would just be disrespectful to put him at last because he's not even going to take a snap this year. So power ranking the rookie quarterbacks as the situations they're in. This does not mean this is who I thought the best quarterbacks were coming into the season, but how rather I view these quarterbacks now with them being drafted, everything that's happened in the offseason and how they've been built around as we step into the 2024 NFL season. At number 1, obviously Caleb Williams, for very obvious reasons. We know what he did at USC. We know he's been built around one of the best rookie quarterback setups we've seen in a while in terms of talent. The only thing that could be better is if he had a head coach that was more proven. But even the defense is looking to make strides this year. So it's no question that Caleb Williams is number 1. At number 2, give me Bo Nix, for the fact that he has Joe Lombardi as his offensive coordinator, who was fairly successful with the Chargers before Kellen Moore came in. He's also got Sean Payton, who a lot of people are not a fan of. I'm still pissed he did what he did to my Saints. You see all the gear behind me. Y'all know how much of a diehard fan I am. And I can't wait for the Saints to play them this year and absolutely dog walk them in New Orleans, because I still feel some type of way about Sean Payton. But I'm not going to deny that Sean Payton didn't do his job with the Broncos last year. He had Russell Wilson back to a top 13 to 12 level. And you can laugh at how specific that is, but Russell Wilson was playing solid football last year. And I thought that they could have kept him to build around him, but nobody wanted that contract. And they got out from under it as soon as they could. And now he's with the Steelers and next to Justin Fields for obvious reasons, because of how the head coaching was with Nathaniel Hackett. But I think Sean Payton's going to be able to get Bo Nix into the second spot. Bo Nix has looked solid in the preseason. I was a fan of Bo Nix. Everyone wanted to call him Bo Picks or, oh, look at him coming from Oregon. Oh, he had to leave Auburn to go to Oregon. No, Bo Nix played well. He won very good games with Oregon. He ran an amazing offense under Dan Lanning. And with Dan Lanning being one of the best coaches in college football, especially one of the best young budding ones, what a way for Bo Nix to get handed off to an insane offensive mind and an extreme veteran like Sean Payton. At number 3, Jaden Daniels. Some people probably could have thought could have put him 1 or 2, but like I said earlier in the show, I'm not the biggest fan of Jaden Daniels' surroundings. They just send, Jahan Dotson out, which he was only a 500 yards a year receiver, but nonetheless, he was still, one of the more solid wide receiver 2 or 3s in the league. Yes, they still do have a Terry McLaurin. There is still a Brian Robinson Jr. there in the backfield. They did bring in an Austin Eckler to help out, but I'm not a fan of Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. And when you look at the schedule, I only see 6 to 7 wins for the Commanders. So that's why I have Jaden Daniels at number 3. At number 4, Drake May. I really only have Drake May here because I know he's going to play all the snaps this year, because Michael Penix probably won't see the field that much unless either A, Kirk gets hurt, the Falcons have clinched a bye, or Kirk plays bad. Other than that, Michael Penix is probably going to get the Jordan Love treatment, and that's not bad because that's what they used to do back in the day. Look how successful Jordan Love is. It's great that we say all that we've said about Kirk Cousins winning the playoff games in the X amount of years, but at the end of the day, he's a veteran. He's tried, he's true, he's consistent, and yes, we know that he can't win on prime time at times or really ever. Kind of turned that stat around last season. Sorry to rant about Michael Penix there, but that's the only way that Penix is going to play, which is what puts Drake May at number 4. I'm not a fan of Drake May's game. Yes, I understand he played at UNC. Yes, I understand it was, Caleb Williams or Drake May coming into the year, but I don't think he's as talented as his contemporaries. I don't. He's got Gerard Mayo, who has made some moves with the New England Patriots this year and is a fresh face, is a fresh vibe, is a fresh era for the Patriots, but I don't expect a ton of success. And again, Michael Penix is only at number 5 because if he gets significant quarterback 1 snaps, and I think he can move to number 3, I think it could be Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. So if we rated these guys in a vacuum, if all 5 of these guys got snaps for the whole year and we added, well, if I did add JJ McCarthy, yeah, I would go Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, which is hard to say because I just like Bo's setup better. And Raheem Morris still has something to prove over there with the Falcons, having a rookie quarterback and just the overall vibe of what's around that team. With even if they have all the talent lined up, they're not able to pull it off. So if these guys were in a vacuum, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix by not too much, because I really like Penix more as a quarterback. But again, it's about the setup, which is why Caleb is probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year as well. Michael Penix at number 3. Jaden Daniels at number 4, again, because of the way I feel about his setup. I would have JJ McCarthy at number 5, and I would have Drake May at number 6. If I were to rank those guys in a vacuum, if they all 5 got snaps for this year. But if with the way that it's set, with the way that it's probably going to roll out, Caleb Williams 1, Bo Nix 2, Jaden Daniels 3, Drake May 4, Michael Penix 5. Again, because Penix is not going to get that many snaps this year, probably, unless unless he gets significant snaps, which again, if the Falcons clinch a bye, if the Falcons are, or if Kirk's not playing well for the Falcons, or if Kirk Cousins gets hurt. Let's get into the 2024 NFL awards predictions before we get out of the show tonight. But before we do get into that, please make sure to like and subscribe to the show wherever you may be watching. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Please subscribe on YouTube. We got to get our watch hours back up since we were a little incognito over the last couple of months, but we're still in the partnership program. Hit me up if you want to get a sponsorship or, a membership for the channel. You can also donate in the chat for a super like or a super thanks, and you can donate directly to the show. No donation is too big or too small. Again, please make sure to share the stream wherever you're watching, like that stream, subscribe it as well. Follow us on all social platforms. That QR code in the corner of the screen is every bit of our content at the NFL with AJL. If you can't find us, I promise you are not looking hard enough because we are everywhere you can think of. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, these are your guys to work with. They're an amazing team, great communication. They will treat your transaction as if it is their own. And these are the lowest rates in 14 months for home buyers. That allows about another 5 million home buyers to jump into the market. So if you're a buyer on the sidelines waiting to jump in, you need to jump in now, because at a later price, at a later time, You're going to pay more for the same house and compete with it for more people. You might buy at the height of the moment, but you're never buying at the height of the market because you know real estate always goes up. We know it always goes up. Yes, it dipped in 2008, but it's continued to trickle up after that, even with the 7% interest rates. Hit them up if you want to get on their exclusive newsletter or if you want to get home valuation reports if you're a homeowner yourself. And as always, we're sponsored by PlayStation Online, the absolute best collaboration for gaming and worship. Hit me up on social media at the NFL with AJL. I can hook you up with the code AJL at checkout if you want any other merch, t-shirts, hats, hoodies, sweatpants, shorts. They can do it all for you. It's a logo. They can put it on any type of merch that you like. These guys are a great team to work with, and I absolutely love the collab that they brought because I'm a Christian man and I absolutely love to play video games. So it really works out on both aspects for everything. Let's predict these NFL awards for the 2024 season before we get out of here. The MVP, I think, is going to be Patrick Mahomes. It feels very clear cut to me. It is getting a little boring seeing that this is really a quarterback award, and we know that. And it doesn't really come down to most valuable player. But when I look at other quarterbacks in the league, yes, it could be a Josh Allen, but he turns the ball over a lot, and the Bills never get it done. Yes, it could be Lord, I literally just had the Joe Burrow, but we know that he's hurt and he's unfortunately not been able to stay healthy. Yes, maybe Brock Purdy could compete or Dak Prescott, but Mahomes year in and year out has been the best quarterback. I think he's the best player in the league still. Everyone, even though they voted Tyreek as the number one in the top 100, we know Mahomes was still on that list without a question. Maybe a little bit lower than he should have been, but I have Patrick Mahomes winning his third MVP trophy this year. Offensive player of the year, Tyreek Hill. I picked Tyreek Hill last year. I'm picking Tyreek Hill again this year. I really thought he should have won it last year, but when you look at Christian McCaffrey, 2,000 all-purpose yards, over 20 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had over 1,700 yards receiving, and I think 13 or 15 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Christian McCaffrey could very well win it again. We could see a guy like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson also jump into the mix again, but I really think this third year with Tua, Tyreek is going to go absolutely crazy. Probably another 15 to 1,600 yard season. It would be nuts if he went 17, 1,800 yards. I believe he's going to get double-digit touchdowns. And this guy's just a walking one-play touchdown. Every time he's in the league in his prime, each year he's in the league at his prime. Let me say that correctly. He's going to be in competition for this award, just like Patrick Mahomes for the MVP. Defensive Player of the Year. This award has some of the most competition out of them all. You could take a look at a guy like Will Anderson Jr. in his second year, or Chris Jones with the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe even Aiden Hutchinson in his third year in the league, Max Crosby, who's been an absolute monster. We know Nick Bosa just recently won it. We're waiting for Micah Parsons to come in and win it. But when I think about the most dominant defensive player in the league on a consistent basis, I take a look at TJ Watt. TJ Watt's only got one. He really should have had two. We know he's got 22 and a half sacks to where he really should have had the half sack counted for him and had 23 and be that leader. And by a slim margin, it comes down to Mikey. It comes down to Myles Garrett. It comes down to TJ Watt and Nick Bosa and Chris Jones. But I think TJ Watt has that edge because he already in his early career has 96 and a half sacks. Call me crazy, but could TJ Watt retire with 200 sacks? It is very possible. At least 150 to 175 because that kid snap in and snap out does not have a motor that turns off. And I will take him again to win Defensive Player of the Year, which I don't think should shock anybody because TJ Watt's that guy. He is him. He's JJ Watt's brother. And he has consistently performed at a high level since he has stepped into this league. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Caleb Williams. This also could have went a couple of other ways, but I'm not going to buy, Jaden over Caleb. I'm not going to buy, possibly Xavier Worthy over Caleb Williams or some of these other offensive players. I really do believe Caleb Williams will be the one to win it because his setup in Chicago is absolutely amazing. He's got great players around him for a rookie. Yes, Matt Eberflus could be better, but Caleb Williams is so special, very magical, very talented. Yes, we've heard people talk about the Mahomes possibilities or whatever, but that's crazy. Let's let Caleb be Caleb because he is very magical and he plays a very, very high brand of football. And I think he's going to have no problem taking home Offensive Rookie of the Year. Dallas Turner will be my Defensive Rookie of the Year. I believe there's really no competition there for that reward. I mean, it's Dallas Turner in the field. There were some solid defensive players that were in this draft, but I just think it's literally him and the field. You could look at Leatu Latu, who was taken before Dallas Turner, but the Vikings knew what they were doing snagging him. We know the Falcons should have taken Dallas Turner. At least I personally believe they should have, because they need the pass rushing aspect. Now they do bring in a Matthew Judon and some other players last year and this year to supplement that, but it still would have been great to see the Falcons sporting the defensive rookie of the year. I do believe that will be Dallas Turner. Comeback player of the year is the most contested award this season, in my opinion, because we've got Nick Chubb, who's a solid player. He could be great coming back from injury, but I think with this second knee injury, it's going to make him really contemplate some things and take a few less snaps for sure. Anthony Richardson, we know he was injured in the prior year. So was Kirk Cousins. So was Joe Burrow. So was Aaron Rodgers. We had a lot of quarterbacks go down last year. Kirk Cousins picking him, it makes me a little nervous because of what the Falcons have been the last couple of years. And again, even when it feels like things are lined up with the roster, do they really pull it out? Anthony Richardson, this is really going to be his rookie season to get all 17 games under his belt. Nick Chubb is off of a second knee injury, so I think we're down to Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow. And it's a really hard pick for me because Aaron Rodgers is very pissed after what happened last year. And we saw when he got pissed off when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, he went and won back-to-back MVPs. I am going to take Aaron Rodgers for comeback player of the year by a slim margin, only because Joe Burrow hasn't been able to stay super healthy. And I am concerned because Joe hobbled into the year last year and he hobbled out of the year last year early at that too. And I said it was already past the time for Joe Burrow to sit and not turn into the next potential Andrew Luck and ruin his career early on because of the impatience of the Cincinnati Bengals. So give me Aaron Rodgers to win comeback player of the year. It's going to be a slim margin, but I think he will etch this one out. And then for coach of the year, another highly competitive award for the NFL awards in 2024. I think it's going to come down to Shane Steichen, D'Amico Ryans, and Jim Harbaugh. And at the end of the day, I'm going to take Jim Harbaugh, as the Chargers will be under an entirely new regime. I think the defense is going to straighten up. We saw the absolute running capability and the smash mouth prowess, the aggressiveness that Jim Harbaugh had at Michigan as he's just coming off winning the national championship. D'Amico Ryan should have won it last year. I don't know why the hell Kevin Stefanski won it, but it's probably because he had 3 different starting quarterbacks. But for D'Amico to be a rookie head coach with a rookie quarterback and win a division with 10 wins and win a playoff game against those said Browns? Come on, guys. I know it was Joe Flacco in there, but that's why I thought it was crazy that Joe Flacco got comeback player of the year. I thought comeback player of the year should have been Baker Mayfield, if I remember correctly. D'Amico Ryans got absolutely robbed last year. Now, he could step in and win it this year, but with Jim Harbaugh getting hired, I think it does make it that much harder. So give me Jim Harbaugh as the coach of the year for the 2024 NFL Awards. I appreciate the hell out of everybody jumping into the show. This was episode 70 of the NFL with AJL. Y'all could have chose any other show tonight, but you were tapped in here with me on the show as we had another edition, another segment of the Double A where we covered Florida State's upset loss to Georgia Tech. We covered each NFC team's agenda, their standard, their mantra for the year, ranked the rookie quarterbacks as I think how they'll perform this year, and we also just finished out the 2024 NFL Awards predictions. Please, before we get out of here, again, like, share, subscribe, especially on YouTube. Don't forget that QR code can take you to every bit of social media and podcast content. The Double A will be back on Tuesday for some college, and obviously we'll have some NFL thrown in on there as well on the back end. Friday show is very possible, but again, Saturday we're doing a pre-game look. We're going to be live at the college football kickoff for the Georgia Bulldogs in Atlanta against number 14, the Clemson Tigers. We'll be tailgating there. We'll be early. Not sure where the stream is going to be yet. More than likely on either Facebook or YouTube. Alan and I are going to be out there live on set, out of the back of my car, doing a show, giving you guys some pregame coverage and just really getting the Double A off the ground and really getting this, energy back for the NFL with AJL. But as always,